bracket was
Yes.
talking about. Wimmer came up with this great
I
one.
made
Best
another
TV
bracket,
characters
which will
since
be
1995.
yes, because I wanted to do it different from our last one, and obviously TV's been around forever, and there's going to be a conclusion to this too, where it's animated characters, not just TV characters. But this one's just TV characters, and my thinking on this one was, well, TV's been around for so long, and the last couple of years is significantly different.
Yeah.
I've barely watched all the shows ever that's been on, so I can't really say anything. But the characters put in here was more comedy series, sitcoms. Those I didn't do any dramas.
Or
I didn't do
also, more
anyone.
characters we're more likely to know.
Yeah, I didn't do like Walter White or anyone from Game of Thrones. I didn't do anything like that. So many of these characters you're going to know. It might be a little tricky, but this is just kind of it. Unlike our last ones, it's only going to be 8 because we
this
tend
is
to
more
gavel.
ideal. That's it. First up, we have Homer Simpson, the number 1 seed, against Phil Dunphy, number 8.
Mhm.
We have Frank Reynolds, number 4, against Andy Dwyer, number 5. Michael Scott, number 2, against Troy Barnes, number 7, and Joey Tribbiani, number 3, against Barney Stinson, number 6.
Yes.
All
So
right.
starting at the top, I didn't want to, but he is one of the most iconic characters. Like I had to put him in here. Not saying that when we do the animated characters that he would take it all, but Homer is the most iconic. The show's been on for 30 plus years.
Not only that, but he's such an iconic, line. Just
and because of that show, because of him, there's been knockoff shows of it.
Yeah,
Family Guy kind of being one of them.
Yeah. Also, I'm not gonna lie. Full disclosure, I had no idea who Phil Dunphy was.
He is the dad in Modern Family.
I never watched Modern Family, so sorry. But I'll put it this way: even if I knew who he was, the vote's got to go for Homer because he's, like I said, he's such an iconic character.
That's why
it's almost impossible not to vote for him. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's what are your thoughts on?
I mean, I like Phil a lot. I don't watch it too often. It's a great show. Modern Family. Phil's funny. There's a lot of good memes with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like the llama one, like the video of the llama. It's hilarious. But I'm going Homer.
Yeah.
Like you guys said, it's iconic. I love the Family. I love The Simpsons. It's been on for 30 years or something like that.
Exactly.
Phil's great, but if you're going overall characters,
I think you got to go Homer. Yeah.
Also, to make it a little trickier on me, I did one character from each show because you could have gone multiple characters from any of these shows.
Oh, yeah.
And both of these when we do this one and when we get to the next bracket.
Yes,
whenever
I agree.
So going down now, we got Frank Reynolds from It's Always Sunny taking on Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec.
This is a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. This is very tough. I haven't seen many episodes of Parks and Rec. I know I still got to watch the entire show. I apologize, and I will do so. But I do know Andy Dwyer and Chris Pratt does an exceptional job of portraying him. Chris Pratt is basically Andy Dwyer in real life. It's just he's. But Frank Reynolds, though, from Always Sunny, there's something about Frank that you just can't.
So it's a tough one, but I think I know which one I'm going with.
I know which one I'm going with.
Yeah. For me, I'm going
start.
Yeah, I'm going with Frank Reynolds on this one because to me, the character of Andy is not that original because he's very childish. He's very kind of that way. And I'm going to get to this later, but I feel like he's also kind of based off Joey from Friends or anyone else from that kind of era.
That's
he's
fair.
kind of the lovable idiot a little bit. That's kind of who he is. Where
Frank
Reynolds is just way out there. He is just.
I feel like one of the very few.
Exactly.
I feel like one of the very few characters you can actually compare Frank Reynolds to is honestly Creed Bratton from The Office in a way.
I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
No, there's nobody in The Office. No one in The Office is like Frank.
No.
You can say slightly, I guess, just because he.
I'm saying
because Creed's out there. Yeah. That's why you'd say that, but
but he's not
I'm not saying to the fullest, but
yeah.
No, but like I get what you're saying, but Frank is boisterous and Creed's not.
No.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, I'd say boisterous would be like more like Dwight, but Dwight is nothing like Frank.
No.
Right.
So I would say I can't really think of too many shows that compare to Frank. Or I should say too many characters that would
not off the top of my head.
Just because he's
he's
that show is meant for chaos.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And it is chaos. The one thing I will say about Frank I love is the troll toll. Or the toll troll.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of these most iconic parts of the show, I think. And
it's that and rum ham.
Yeah. Andy's great, but you do make a great point in then that you got to pick Frank because, like he said, and something I didn't really think about is Andy is that kind of that very common character in a comedy show.
Not that he's a bad character. He's here for a reason.
He's a fantastic character. He's just that lovable idiot that almost every comedy show has.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. Next up, we got Michael Scott, number 2 against Troy Barnes.
Yes.
Number 7.
We all went with Frank, right? We all went with
Frank.
We did.
Yeah, for Frank. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, another one about this. I'm sorry for everyone. I don't know Troy.
Yeah, he's from Community.
Now I've heard he's a fantastic show.
It is. In terms of the shows that were on right around The Office and Parks and Rec, where it's such an underrated, it just came up so underneath it because those shows were on, because those shows were so iconic and everything. But the show itself is really good, and the reason why I put him on here is that, and it makes sense that he's with Michael Scott, and obviously I think we all know who's taking this one because it's,
It's Michael Scott.
In both of these cases, when both characters leave the show drops off dramatically, at least to me. So, in Troy's defense, or Donald Glover, who played him, when he left the show tanked a lot harder for me than it did when Michael Scott left. Because in The Office, you still had the same characters, essentially. You still had Dwight, you still had Jim, you still had Pam, you still had pretty much the whole office. Just Michael left, which was a huge loss because he was such an iconic to.
Yeah. But you have all those other characters kind of back up the show.
Yeah. But while Troy was a little more of a backgroundy character instead of Michael Scott being, the main person, Troy was more like kind of a lovable idiot too, but his character after he left, the show just wasn't the same. But Michael Scott is just, he takes it easily. But that was just the only case I was taking for Troy.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because I want to say he's the best, but I'd say he's the most important character for me, both these two.
Similar to the first one, like for the Philadelphia one, I don't unfortunately know Troy Barnes's character. Michael Scott, he's like another iconic character. That's just, and also one thing I really actually, I'm gonna save that point. So never mind. But this one's, whether I know Troy's character or not, this one's easy. It's Michael Scott, of course.
Yes.
Last but not least, Joey Tribbiani against Barney Stinson. This is a tough one here, I think, because you brought up the point, Whitmer, of earlier how how Andy's kind of the knockoff version of Joey in a way, but I think Joey kind of set the standard in a way for that kind of character. So that to me,
that's where I wanted to continue that point I was making with Andy before, in that. For me, the most iconic, lovable idiot is Joey. And not just that, is that even though he was the one character in Friends that you say may not have changed as much, or not as much as went for him as terms of that character, he still had those moments outside of just being childish to be, there for their friends. He was the one you could absolutely count on. Even though he was way out there, he was a lovable idiot. I feel like he kind of set the bar for that.
He set the bar really high after that.
Where Barney Stinson was one of those characters that was just out there for the show he was in, for How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Did you both see How I Met Your Mother all the way through?
Yes, multiple times.
No.
course he did.
See, yeah. So I don't know who.
And both of these shows also, I didn't mean to do this either. It's perfectly accidental. Both these shows, Friends or How I Met Your Mother, is pretty much a knockoff of Friends.
Yeah. But going towards just the characters themselves, not the show itself, it's gonna be hard for me to choose one. Yes, Joey is the iconic, lovable, friendly, goofy kind of person where not much character development. Even though Barney came off more of, I would say, a more stubborn friend, but he was always there for all of his friends. He wasn't openly there like Joey was, but he was always there. He was always financially helping them. He was always willing to do things for them, help them in any way they could. He just wasn't as open about it. You had to literally just watch the show as it progressed to understand that's what he was there for. He also had a very quick character development.
Yeah.
I don't know. It went from very basically him just sleeping with a lot of women and doing his own thing, very selfish, but he was always there for his friends as well. But then he became a very, I want love, I want one thing, I want this, and that.
Not near the end of the show, but towards the end, he kind of changed. Like, I don't know, because he was kind of out there. Like, I don't really know what I want, but this is comfortable to me. This is safe. Yeah. This is comfortable. This is
I know it.
I won't get hurt. I don't. And then you see later on, he has little things. You know, him and his father. He has his issues, so that kind of opens him up a little more. So then he wants, love and all this, and then he thinks he has it like with Robin. Then he just kind of fails here and there. So then he goes back to what he was comfortable with.
But then I think what a big thing was like when he had his kid and he said, I can't think of like what he said to his kid, but the baby, he was like, everything I am, everything I have is yours or will be yours forever or something like that. And I think that line transcended who he was. He went from this, filthy rich, kind of dickhead.
Yeah.
To, in that moment, kind of like no longer he was the focal point. It was like, okay, this human being is the focal point from now on. Where Joey was always like that. He never changed.
No.
I'm gonna go Joey, but I think you could argue really hard.
You could
for Barney because of the character development that he did have. But yeah. And what he did.
I really do enjoy a good character development, but it's kind of hard for me to say because, like I unfortunately pointed out, I've never seen How I Met Your Mother the whole way through. I apologize to fans everywhere, Brian and everyone.
I mean, I love the show, but it's really repetitive.
It is,
yeah. But so I mean, Joey's Joey.
I also don't think you've seen Friends all the way through either, so.
I've seen actually a good amount, surprisingly, but also that one not all the way through still. But regardless, though, I like Joey's character overall, though.
I watched them both through multiple times.
Same.
Don't get me, I still love How I Met. I haven't watched it in a long time. It's a great show. I just thought at some points it got repetitive.
It did.
It just kind of got repetitive. I mean, Friends did too a little bit. It was almost the same.
Yeah.
Not as much, but they were. But like you said, How I Met Your Mother was kind of a knockoff of. Instead of a coffee shop, they were in a bar.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of.
There you go. All right. So then we got Homer against Frank, Michael Scott against Joey. Down to the final four.
I'm going to go Homer.
I don't know.
Yeah, you do. He is the most iconic. He is the most iconic.
So iconic, though. But it's just...
He's just the iconic TV dad. That's who he is. So many have come after him.
Yeah, but
And think about it,
Frank's
he's,
like
he,
his
he's
own
like,
character. Like, well,
He
like
is.
you guys even
Like,
said yourself. I in a way try to compare him to Creed because they're so unique and different, but you can't even compare him, like you said, to anyone out there. And you can somewhat compare other characters like to Homer Simpson. Obviously, not the very same, but he's Frank is Frank.
yeah.
I get it.
I'm going to go on the absolute rare upset here. I'm going to say Frank.
But we're doing. Are we all having different finals then?
No,
we all
it's
have
how we've always done it.
We're
The
still
majority
taking the
wins.
majority.
Yeah.
We're still taking the
So
majority.
Homer moves
like
on.
we usually do. Yeah,
okay.
Homer moves on. I'm just saying, in my vote, I'm voting towards Frank. It's not. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah. All right, and then of course you got Michael Scott against Joey.
I'm going Joey because he's never been cringy. Joey was never cringy.
This is true.
As Michael Scott has been. And
there's
Jeff, I know you're so biased about this.
No, here because I actually had for once a pretty legitimate argument for Michael Scott's case. So after all the years I've been watching The Office and all the different things I've like watched and listened, the reason why Michael Scott is so cringy, it actually makes him a very great character overall, because obviously it's very cringy, but it's like, look at the story of arc of like how from season 1 all the way until when Michael leaves the show, and even when at some point he returns, for a brief cameo and everything. You go from such a cringy, like you said, extremely cringy boss to no one likes, no one wants to be around, to you realize his backstory is so incredible, because you realize like he's lived such a honestly like a heartbreaking life, and you can't help but feel bad for the guy. Like, he actually was a great salesman, and when he's a regional manager, he's kind of that guy is like he just wants everyone to like him, and you realize that like throughout his life he hasn't had many friends. He hasn't had many people that actually enjoy having a conversation with them or inviting him out to drinks or anything like that. And by the time like you get towards the end of the show, like or even when he leaves, like you see the perfect example, Michael's last Dunnies, like when everyone they get up and they sing for him.
You mean the scene
and you see
hate
like
because of Will Ferrell?
In the scene I hate because Will Ferrell ruins that amazing moment. Damn it, Will Ferrell. But no, like it shows by the end of the time Michael leaves how much everyone in the office actually truly does come to actually love Michael Scott and say like, look, like by the end of the day, he will always fight for his employees. He will always, think of his employees first and do whatever he can he's obviously, you can't live a perfect life, but he does what he can to give them as great of a life as he possibly can in the working world, and tries to make life and work in general fun for them, where a lot of bosses that are like, oh, like here's your work, this is that. And of course he goofs off maybe a little too much, but that's why he just can't help it, because he wants to make it such an enjoyable life for them. And he wants, by the end of the day, he wants everyone to appreciate him as a boss and as a person. And by the time his character leaves, you realize how much not only do they appreciate him, but they genuinely love him as a boss. Like Jim says, he's the best boss he ever had, and how much Jim kind of in a way despises Michael throughout the couple seasons of the show and everything, and he messes with him too and everything. But he genuinely cares about him too, and he starts tearing up because he realizes he's never had such a great boss like Michael Scott before, and as cringy as he has been, which I can see he has been extremely cringy, Scott Tubbs, for example.
You like that episode, right?
Absolutely. But you can't help but feel bad for him, and his character arc is such a tragic one in a way. It goes to it's like an emotional roller coaster the entire way, and by the time it's at the very end, it's like, wow, you actually love his character as a whole.
I think so. I agree with everything you said. I also think it hurts that you didn't watch Friends all the way through.
And that's true too. I
think that hurts a lot.
That does hurt
in the situation between Michael Scott and Joey, because Joey is pretty much.
And you're not wrong.
So Joey is very much like, and Whitmer can back me up on this because he's watched the entire thing as well, or at least the majority, if not. Did you watch the entire thing?
Yep.
Okay. That where like
again multiple times.
See, everybody loves Joey, but when it comes to love, like Michael Scott, Joey doesn't go out of his way to find it because he doesn't believe he deserves it, in a sense. He doesn't think he's good enough for it or whatever. So he's kind of like Barney Stinson in that sense of this is comfortable because he won't get hurt. Like there's a scene where he likes Rachel and she says no to him. And he's like, oh, okay, no, it's okay. I get it. Meaning like in that kind of sense, you think he's like, I'm not going to be kind of good enough for you. I'm not going to be able to give you what you need or whatever.
Right. What you actually deserve.
I'm not saying that's what it is about, but that's what you can take away and a snippet of it in that scene. So in that sense, Joey's the same way in the romantic levels of Michael Scott. I think Michael Scott had a better character development moving forward. Because Joey didn't have one again. But I still think you would have to go Joey because of what the entire season, what the entire show put him through and what he came out as. Even though he didn't change, there were a lot of things did change in him for him as he moved forward. That's why I just think you would have to, that's what I personally would choose, Joey.
Yeah.
And you're right. That is certainly fair that if I watch the whole with you, I might have a completely different opinion. And that's fair.
See, I'm a little. I think at the moment I'm leaning a little more towards Joey, but to me, I think both characters, even though they're a little more out there, they're very relatable to real life, and that in both these cases, well, not that much has gone on in the entirety of their shows. They still had their ups, they had their downs, they had their rough upbringing, somewhat. Joey had his big family and all this, and then he's on his own. He's kind of a struggling actor. Michael Scott, his mom and dad were divorced and all this. So, he had a little bit of an awkward kind of development coming up, which could maybe explain why he's the way he is, why he always wants to be liked, because he just never really had that. So he feels like he kind of deserves that. But for me, I think Joey, I just like Joey more. I just like his characters more than Michael Scott. At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. I like it. I like Michael Scott as a character and all this, and he's so iconic to his character.
And that's 100%
like
fair.
I said, back to the Troy Barnes and Michael Scott, and that to me he was more iconic than anything else than when he left the show. Because when he left the show, then he just wasn't the same. Even though they tried to do a spinoff of Joey, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I also think the Friends, like The Office, you can't really relate to.
No,
and for the majority of the characters, because they're so quirky. Where Friends, when the show began, they were literally in their 20s, going through in the show itself. They were giving real life situations.
Yeah, which I get, but the only thing I'll ever argue in that sense is their apartment,
which was handed down to them by their grandmother.
Yeah, which was handed down to them. So that's also where again it hurts. It hurts Jeff where he doesn't see the show, so he doesn't know the entire concept of everything.
Right, but still, like the fact that they're still able to afford it in New York, like throughout their 20s, though.
Yeah. Well, at one point there were like 3 people living there. 2 people living there.
That's fair.
So like, I just think, but the character-wise, I'm not talking about where they lived. I'm not talking about.
I know.
I'm saying,
I know.
Per character, they're more relatable in every sense than The Office, because they're going through losing jobs, finding new jobs, going through relationships, getting dumped, all getting married, doing everything. Early 20s to late 20s,
30s.
Go through. Then into the 30s, having kids, Ross and his divorce, going through love again and all that stuff. Every single one of them, you can be like, since we're in our 20s, like,
right.
I get that.
Like you said, it's more.
I relate to it, even though we know they're making $1 million per, but the character itself, it's like, okay,
yes,
you're going through that hard-ish. Hey, that's what I'm going through right now too.
Yeah.
right.
So,
And then, of course, at Dunder Mifflin, none of that is as, if not ever, relatable, really.
I mean, their relationships maybe, but they're all just kind of working. All of them are quirky. No one's gonna be like, oh, I'm like the wife. No one's gonna be like that.
No one's Dwight. No one's Grace. Realistically,
like maybe someone's more like Jim and Pam, Aaron, Ryan, maybe, but that's it. Like,
I'm not gonna lie. I thought you said Brian. I'm like,
maybe.
I mean, you can be like Brian, so
wouldn't it
like
be?
that's like a maybe. True, but that's a maybe. That's like, I can see some things every now and then, but Friends is like every show is like, I get that.
That's fair. There you go. So Joey moves on, and he is the underdog in this, going up against Homer Simpson.
Yeah, I think I got to go Homer on this one for me. Again, as we've mentioned many times, at least I have, he's just so iconic. The show's been on for 30 years. I mean, really.
I gotta go Joey.
Okay.
I know it's not gonna win. I know Jessica can pick Homer.
I mean, I feel like
but I gotta
have to go Homer in this because I've seen more of his, and it's in a way unfair because I haven't seen the show the whole way through for Friends, and obviously like for Simpsons, it's so many episodes.
But you've seen enough to understand Joey.
I've seen enough to understand Homer's character, so it's an unfair advantage towards Homer, like some of the other ones that I've picked. So unfortunately, Homer kind of does have that advantage. But like I said, it's an unfair one because I've seen more episodes of that. But you get a sense of Homer's overall character.
I think you make an argument for either one on this case.
You could certainly make